Good morning, everyone. This is Cristina Osborne of the Property VA. So it's another day of training with property VAs and me teaching them how to build a pipeline of off-market property deals. I'm going to share my screen shortly so that we can have the slides to guide us as to what we're going to cover today. Great. So I hope you guys can all see my screen. We got,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, so the official title of this weekly webinar is the weekly VA lead generation training for finding of market property deals. Um, for our weekly format, we'll start off with wins and challenges, and then we'll do a recap roulette. Recap roulette is when one of you or both of you will choose a strategy from previous webinars for me to do a recap on. Okay, so you tell me what strategy you'd like a recap. And then we'll move on to the main learning. We'll do a Q&A so that you can ask me questions both on the recap as well as the main learning, or maybe any troubleshooting you'd like me to help you with. And then we'll do an action list before we move on to main ideas and key takeaways before we end the today's session. Okay, so off we go with wins and challenges. I Honestly, could I probably start with you so you can introduce yourself? I know it's only three of us here in the group, but other VAs will be watching the replay. So, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Hanalea Caro. Please call me Hana. And yeah, this is my first week. And when Elena informed me about this training, I got very excited. So I had to move my schedules around in order to be able to attend this live. So I've been a VA for years now, really, but I've been working for Elena for just 3 weeks, almost a month.
Mhm.
And it's been a learning process. I didn't have any experience with property management or scraping or sourcing before. However, Elena really was a very good guide and mentor. I learned a
Mhm.
lot in really in just a few days, and she encouraged me to attend such training so I can master other skills in property management. So looking
Okay,
forward to the
go on.
opportunities. Right.
Go on. Are you're looking for it? Thank you for that. Do you foresee or have you experienced any challenges so far? I know you've just started, but if you could share maybe something that you've you either already know or have experienced or that you can foresee that they might be challenges for you.
Um, well, first, related to property management, I believe is the I'm not really familiar with the location yet,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like the scope of the properties that we manage. So sometimes I scrape properties that are very far away from our scope.
Okay.
So just speaking of just the distances with the tools, I'm already familiar with how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just mainly about the property information. And I'm a master of multitasking, but I noticed that scraping and sourcing takes a lot of time because you have to really match the criteria of the properties that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, you have to call these properties to book viewing. And if you're not fast in calling out these agents, the property might be sold real quick. So it's about I think that the main challenge for me is just managing the time between scraping and calling, inquiring for these properties and then scheduling the viewing for Elena because it's really a number game. And
Mm-hmm. It
yeah.
definitely is. I think maybe because Elena wants to do the marketing by phone rather than sending out letters.
Mhm.
perhaps what you can do is instead of doing big chunks or large bulks of data scraping tasks at a time, that you do it in
Mhm.
smaller chunks so that Elena gets the list much more quickly and for her to then instruct which ones you're going to call.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have KPI and we have like targets. So the
Mhm,
target is like 250 properties a month. And considering I only work part time and other than
mhm,
scraping and calling out these leads or other tasks I have to complete. So that's the main challenge, really, especially that our criteria is limited. There are very few properties out there that really match what we
mhm.
want for a
Okay.
property. Yeah.
Okay. Could you explain to me briefly again what Elena's investment strategy is or what kind of property she's looking for?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. She's looking for property to buy to let, and she's looking for property for rent that she can also rent out. So rent to
Mhm.
rent or buy to let properties,
Okay.
mainly around Leeds. There are specific postcode that we really deal with. Not
Mhm.
all, yeah, not every property in Leeds, basically.
Okay.
And yeah, just maximum 3 bedrooms, and the budget is 140K max.
Okay, that's all right. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing your wins and
Oh,
challenges
you're
with us
welcome.
today. Mary Grace, I'll move over to you. I'd love to hear where you've um, where you've done brilliantly and where I might be able to help you with in terms of
Yeah.
challenge.
Mm. Actually, last week, I already asked Lee about the direct mail
Mm-hmm.
method, the direct mail campaign, and then he's quite interested about it. And then he also asked me about the stamped. So
Yeah.
I send all of the details regarding the stamp, regarding the pricing, like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then, but as of this week, we haven't started it yet because he's busy with the property presentation. So I am helping him with the property presentation.
Okay, so do I gather that you've actually not sent any mailing campaigns using Stamp before because Lee's just um only is only just starting to look into it?
Yeah,
Okay,
haven't yet.
which okay, great. Does he know or do you know what kind of lead generation strategy he's most interested um to start with or for you to start um
Uh,
using?
um, actually, he sent me some of the links. It's a property links in Rightmove
Yeah.
where I should get all the full addresses.
Yeah.
But then he suggests us to stop doing it to focus with the property presentation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. I haven't have any idea about the strategy he wanted me to do. But after the maybe after the property presentation we will talk about it again.
Okay. I think I know what to do with today's recap.
Mhm.
We've got Hana here with us today, who's only ever joined us recently, and then Mary Grace, who's not actually really utilized any strategy yet, although you have been joining us in and out for the last month or two. So if you girls wouldn't mind, the okay, I'm going to do for the recap. I think I'll do a recap on Stamp. I'll do a recap on navigating the Asana board, and then I'll do a recap on like I guess general guidelines for lead generation and data scraping. And then if we have extra time later, we might actually go through one strategy, but otherwise we'll just move on to the main learning for today if there isn't any time. Okay. Right. So recap in terms of your goals as property VAs, specifically lead generation property VAs. main purpose of me holding weekly trainings and weekly webinars is to teach an implementation based learning for UVAs. That is to say, the goal is whatever I teach you, every session will be easy and straightforward for you to carry out and implement straight away. Okay, there's specific steps that you can carry out by simply watching the replays and also by referring to the slides, which I will show you shortly where you can find them on Asana. So that is to say, there's nothing that I teach in any given week that will require you any advanced type of understanding, learning, or experience, or even training, because every one of them will be easy to implement straight after each session. Okay. Secondly, the goal is for you as property VAs to build a pipeline of off-market property deals for your clients. So this is really what you're learning here from me, how to build a pipeline of off-market property deals. Okay. And this connects with the first goal, which is implementation based, because how what you're doing to implement each strategy, each learning, is that you're building a pipeline of off-market property deals for your clients. Third, the idea is to, on a weekly basis, create and send out campaigns for your clients or on behalf of your clients to campaign with the pipeline of off-market property deals directly to the vendor. Typically, what I teach the VAs is how to send out marketing letters, but in some clients, like Honest clients, Elena, I think she prefers to do phone calls. Now, I think she wants to do phone calls because she wants to get in there as soon as possible. Sending out letters is a little bit slower. However, when you when you use the listings to call estate agents, you're not speaking directly to the vendor. That's what DTV stands for. Whereas when you send out letters, it's a bit slower, but you bypass the estate agent and you communicate directly with the vendor. All the strategies that I teach, wherein you communicate directly to the vendor, involves raising pain points that an estate agent may not necessarily relate to or care about. Whereas within the letter, when it gets sent directly to the vendor, the pain points are something um, that the home seller can relate to, or might trigger something wherein the idea is the call to action for them to then ring your client. Okay. And hopefully there's going to be a deal there that your client is able to negotiate with the vendor. And finally, we want to be utilizing not just one strategy or a few strategies, but as many as your client wants you to utilize. So that's what multi funnel marketing stands for. I don't teach just one strategy, I teach as well, at the moment, I think there are about a little over 10 strategies on the Asana board that you, as property VAs, can refer to at any time and utilize. Your client also has access to this Asana board. Therefore, you and your client can discuss which strategies she or he wants you to utilize. Okay. So, in terms of specific numbers, the recommendation, in my opinion, of course, it might vary for your clients. The recommendation is to be sending out 50 direct to vendor campaigns a week as a minimum. Now, your clients might have a property criteria or an investment criteria that's very specific and very limited, which means that you may not even be able to send out 50 letters a week. But for the most part, because obviously I don't know what your individual clients investment goals are, then I would just but a standard peg the number or the figure at 50 letters a week. That should be enough volume to generate good traction and to to build a consistent marketing campaign for your client. Okay, so now we're on to the recap roulette. As I explained a few minutes ago, what I'll try to recap is less about a specific strategy and more about general guidelines. So okay, let's open this multi-funnel board. Hona, could you just confirm with me if you have access to this board yet?
Not yet, but I did click the invitation, but it's asking me to sign up.
Right. Could you just in the chat box, wait, let me stop sharing my screen for a second. In the chat box, could you type in your email address? Because
Sure.
I think the short notice as well with you joining us here today was because um, both Elena and I are on school holiday mode at the moment, so we're not operating in the same number of hours. And so when she contacted me yesterday saying that yes, Christina, sign me up, I didn't have enough time to actually send you the full details. All right, so prosperity property north at gmail.com. Is this your own or is this Elena's email address?
No, that's our email address for the. This is my email address for the company that Elena created for me. Should I give you my personal email?
Um, not as long as you have access to this email address so that
Yeah,
you
that's
can
the
send.
company email I use. Right.
Okay. I have a more formal email than this, but save us from having to write it out. I'm just gonna send you a note. So okay, so I've sent you an invitation. Once you accept that, you will have access to this funnel board. Oh, sorry, I haven't shared my screen, have I? Let me do that again. Okay, so this is the board on Asana where I upload all the lead generation strategies that I'm covering or I have covered. So, right. We've got here a few columns on your screen that you can see. The first one would be the recordings of the client sessions that I've held. I've only held one client session previously, and I think Elena was there to join us for this session. Each card will have a replay. So, although this was a client session, the VAs are welcome to watch the replays as well. So, you have access to this. I know that obviously it takes time to watch these videos, but if you just select the on YouTube, you can select a replay speed. I think it's called a speed or replay speed, which means that if this video takes an hour to watch in full, you can cut that time in half if you replay at twice the speed. Okay. Now, in terms of strategies, I've grouped them into three. One is finding below market value property deals. The second is to find commercial to residential property deals. And the third I would call finding rental multiplier property deals. I've not covered the third strategy yet, uh, mainly because it's it's not as straightforward as the other two, but also because any of these strategies both the below market value and the C2R, commercial to residential property deals, um, can sometimes find these kinds of opportunities for your clients. So you might be using a below market value strategy deal, such as sold subject to contract, but the solution itself that your client proposes to the home seller might be a solution wherein your client is able to negotiate a rental multiplier investment strategy. Okay, this would be like a more creative way of buying properties, but the concepts all remain the same. That is to say, your client is either asking for a discount, so that's below market value. That's the simplest um, definition of what below market value means. It means that you're buying at a discount, or in terms of commercial to residential, your client is adding value to the property. So this one is asking for a discount, the second one is adding value. And so while you're buying market value, what your client wants to do at the end of it, the exit of the investment strategy, is that it still becomes below market value because your client has added value to the property in question. Okay, so I'm just showing you now here how to navigate the Asana board so that you understand what kind of information you can have access to. How do you find this information and what resources are available? So under each category are the strategies that are covered in that category, such as below market value. If you click on any of the strategy cards, for example, probate, you will find here a link to the replay. Um, with some of the strategies, if I've covered it under a recap or a troubleshooting replay, I I also paste all the relevant replay links in the strategy card. Down here, if you scroll down, you'll find all the instructions as well as files and templates that you will need to carry out the strategy. So in this instance, sold subject to contract, if you click on the strategy name, this is the exact step-by-step guide for you to carry out the strategy. So you start by getting instructions from your clients, going on to property listings. Typically, this will be Rightmove or Zoopla. There's a couple more in the market, but I find that if it's on their platform, it's on Rightmove. If it's on Zoopla, it's on Rightmove. Okay. So I don't waste time using other platforms, and I just simply go to Rightmove. It's like the Google of um, property listings. Okay, now go back to your client's instructions. You use your client's instructions as filters to input on the property portals so that the results that come out are the results that you data scrape. Okay, so in this instance, the strategy is sold subject to contract. So therefore, you data scrape the listings that are marked sold subject to contract after you've inputted your client's filters. And then you use the CSV file template that I also uploaded to Asana in order to contain the listings that you're data scraping so that you can then submit this to your client for review. When your client says yes, you can prepare the correct direct to vendor mailing campaign on Stamp. I'll do a recap on Stamp as per Mayor Grace's request, and download the PDF proof to show to your client. When approved, schedule the campaign. In terms of, let's say, Hona's clients, where she's wanting to call the estate agent rather than send out letters. Um, this means that, okay, so this is the standard mail merge template that I've uploaded to Asana. So for you, Hona, for your client, you may want to use perhaps reference ID. Maybe the reference ID is where you paste the link from Rightmove. Okay, so let's just as an example. Okay, so can you give me a postcode from Leeds? Is it
LS9, LS10.
LS9? Okay, LS10. Right. Not very helpful, is it?
Okay, let me give you a complete postcode. One sec.
LS9. Okay, which area is LS9? Hare Hills. All right. Okay.
Yeah, in Beeston, Hare Hills.
You want Beeston. Okay, let's do
We do
Beeston.
Beeston as well, right?
Okay. So, for example, I think you mentioned minimum 2 bedrooms, maximum 140,000, property types any. Okay, I'm just doing
Houses.
a quick like sold subject to contract recap here. So if you click on this, then it will show you listings that are sold subject to contract. If you don't click on that, it will not show you the listings. Now, the reason why some people want it turned on and turned off is because if it's already sold subject to contract, um, people think that it's game over for those property listings. That is to say, someone's already bought it, so why should we bother looking at that? Well, for property investors, for them, there's a potential opportunity here because just because it's marked as sold subject to contract, it doesn't mean that the sale actually took place or will take place because the depending on market conditions, the typical figures that are being shared in property circles is that a third of sold subject to contract listings actually need to go back onto the market. That is to say, the sale never happened. So that's the opportunity for your client there, because if the sale hasn't happened, it means that these home sellers or landlords who are selling their rental properties are going to have to go through the hassle and the expense of listing the property all over again and trying to find a buyer. So if your client has contacted these vendors directly to let them know that if the property needs to go back, excuse me, needs to go back onto the market, that to save them from the hassle of having to relist the property, might they not just give your client a call because your client's in the position to buy quickly? So that's the explanation of the strategy there. Okay. So if we click on find properties, now assuming that we inputted your client's criteria correctly, it means any listing that Rightmove will then show you that's got this mark here, sold subject to contract, it means that this is the property that you're going to data scrape. Okay, so um let us use this as an example. Copy. Where is that? So now you can paste the link there. So if you populate this with all of the listings that basically match the lead generation strategy that you're using, then you can then save this file, whether you save it up onto a cloud or download it to computer and then emailing it to your client. your this is then the step where you ask your client to review the addresses that you're data scraping. Okay, in terms of where you can put the phone number, I would suggest any column that you'd like to add onto the stamp template, you add it at the like after the final columns. Okay, where's the project address? I don't know, maybe because I'm only view only. Um, but let's say it's this one, project address. Okay, then you type in here contact number, or even estate agent contact number. Okay, so which one do we have here? This one is purple bricks, and the contact number is there. Purple bricks contact number. Okay. So then once this entire spreadsheet is populated with all of these listings here, I don't know how to move this thing out of the way. Sorry guys, there's this thing on my screen that I can't move, so I can't see all the tabs. Oh, never mind, there it is. Right, so once you've data scraped, it's not necessarily 89 listings, okay? But once you've data scraped all the ones that are marked sold subject to contract, like this one and this one and this, etc. Not this, because that one is not marked as sold subject to contract. As soon as you complete the data scraping, then you can save the file and forward over to your client to review. And if your task is also to be the one to ring the agents, then at least you've got a spreadsheet of all the addresses that you can contact. Okay, anything that you want to add to the spreadsheet, like for example viewing date, um, then you can just simply add onto the spreadsheet. Now, the reason why I don't want you to disturb the first few rows or columns on the stamp file is because this is the format that Stamp, the mailing platform, recognizes. And if you change anything here, if you type in, for example, telephone number, oh, wait. Okay, if instead of title you type in name, or instead of first name you type in name, then Stamp won't recognize the CSV file and will not be able to prepare the campaign for you correctly. Okay, this is a read-only file, which means that I'm not really able to show you properly how that would happen. But any questions on this so far? I'm just showing you, kind of recapping all over the place because I'm starting from the beginning rather than just addressing one strategy. Uh, any questions so far before I move on?
None from me. Yes, we already have a spreadsheet for scraping properties anyway. So similar
Okay,
to this one, right?
similar to this one. Um, if your client then decides to for you to create letter marketing campaigns on Stamp, then simply go to the Asana board to download the correct format. Okay. As I mentioned, if it's not the correct format that Stamp recognizes, it will. It, you might be paying for a campaign because Stamp won't stop you from paying for a campaign. You might your client might be paying for a campaign for 200 letters at, I don't know, £100 or so, and it's all gone to waste because none of the letters actually were sent out properly because the CSV file that you uploaded was incorrect. Okay, so just make sure that if your client does want you to send a campaign on Stamp, that you use the correct format. Okay,
You
so
got it. Thank you.
right. And when you're in the Asana board, not only do you have access to the correct Stamp mail merge format, but you also have access to the letter template. That is to say, the standard letter template that I've uploaded on here. It's in a doc file that is meant for you to input your client specific details in there, or for your client to change the wording on the letters. Okay, so for example, I've got here um thanks.
Hot chocolate if you want it.
No, I don't want hot chocolate.
Okay, well, we've got everything else.
Okay, sorry guys for the noise. As I mentioned, we're in a hotel and they've just come back from breakfast. Okay, so for example, we've got here client's details. So obviously, instead of just typing client's details, you type your actual client's details in there, or the name that your client wants to um name as the contact person. Because sometimes, let's say your client has a foreign name that's difficult to pronounce. Your client might just use an easy to pronounce name like John, or I don't know, Jason, for example. Okay, and then your client's business name and telephone number. Okay, so there's that. So this is the multi-funnel lead generation board. Again, why do I call it multi-funnel? Is because there's more than one strategy here that you can utilize. And this is a good visual way for you to see, oh, look at this. I've tried this strategy, but look at all these other strategies that I haven't tried. Why don't I contact my client, send her an email, and ask her, shall we try this strategy? Christina has taught us this strategy recently, and I think it's a good strategy for us to try out, and for me to help you build a pipeline of off-market property deals. Okay. Right. Feel free to download these files, these resources, and so that you can create your own Asana board, or if you use Trello, if you use Google Drive, whatever platform you use, download it, upload it to that platform that you and your client wants to use, and you have your own access. But every week just come back, because I might be uploading new training, new learning. Okay, right. So Hannah, can I just ask, would because when oh wait, cancel, when I teach the first ever webinar that I covered how to make sure that you've got a complete address to campaign to. Would you know what a complete address, UK address, looks like postcodes,
Yes.
first line of address, and all that?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you look at a listing like this, Ring Road, Leeds, LS11, would you know what's missing from this address and how to find the complete address? Or would you like me to cover that today?
No, that should be fine. Especially with Purple Bricks, we have access to their portal. I just usually book online, schedule the viewing online, and then when you schedule online, the address will automatically pop up.
Okay, yes, with Purple Bricks. But let's say this wasn't Purple Bricks. So would you be confident in finding the address of this property here?
Yeah, I usually click see map.
Okay, and how about the house number? Would you
Um,
know?
yeah, if the house number is not visible in the photo, I call the agent because it's standard that I call the agent anyway, and I ask for the house number.
Okay, but when it's sold subject to contract,
They
sometimes the
still,
agent will say it's already sold subject to contract. Why do you want to find out? Right. So what if they're being difficult with you and say, we're not giving that out because it's already sold subject to contract, or we're
well,
not
I
taking any more viewings because it's sold subject to contract?
I don't know how to get it from there, but so far I haven't encountered any like maybe
Okay,
hostile agent when it comes to asking for the complete address, because
I
my
know.
excuse usually is that we would like to find out other properties in the neighborhood. It would help us greatly if you have the complete address for our notes, and yeah, they often understand and give that out, no problem, even if it's
Okay,
sold to contract,
okay. Well,
right?
just in case, you know, you're not able to get the address from the agent, or they're being difficult. An easy way to do this, apart from going onto Street View and Google and then walking the yellow man and looking at the most identical match of the property. Another way of finding the house number is to go to sold history, sale history. If you go to sale history, you can see here that this is like the fingerprint of this house, okay? It's sold in 2020 for 125,000. That was just last year. 2018 for 77,000, okay? Which means that if I then go to sold house prices and look at properties with, you know, the exact, okay, not similar, the exact so sale history, so 2020 for 125, 2018 for 77,000. I'm going, yeah, it's this property, I think. I'm just going to double check. I can't see any other similar one. Then that is the full address of this property. It's number 31, and the postcode, the two parts of the postcode is complete there. It's LS11 8EN. Okay, where was that? Was it this one? Okay, so here what's missing is the house number and the full postcode. But using the sale, property sale history, and comparing that with a list of sold house prices in the same area, then it will show you the full address. Okay, it even includes Beeston on here, whereas this listing does not. It just says Ring Road Leeds LS11. Okay, so that's one very easy way of finding the complete address of the property. Okay. Um, right. So I'm going to move over to covering stamp as a recap. And then what I'm going to do is just do it quickly and then move over to the main learning for today. Okay. Stamp. Okay. What do we need to use stamp for? Stamp is where you can prepare letter campaigns on behalf of your client, send out letters, even though you're all the way in the Philippines and your client's business, as well as the addresses that you're contacting, is based here in the UK. Okay, so you don't physically need to be in the UK to print letters, put it in an envelope, use local postage and franking in order to have letters delivered to UK addresses. You can simply use a platform like Stamp. There's a few others that are on the market. I do like to use Stamp because um, there's bless you. There's human beings that you can chat to straight away using their live chat. What you call this support feature. So you're not talking to a bot. You're not being given canned answers, and which is especially invaluable if you've got like a technical situation or technical question that needs to be answered right then and there. So that's why I like using Stamp. Okay, I am going to. Right, I'm not so sure what I'm going to cover. I'm going to show you how to create a letter. I'm going to show you how to upload or create and upload a recipient group, and how to create and send out a bulk campaign. So if I'm going to go back here and choose this this letter template, sold subject to contract. Okay, I'm gonna download that. All right. What else? I am going to use an actual client. Okay, he hasn't got a letterhead yet. All right, fine, that's fine. I'm gonna use this as a letterhead as an example. If I'm, oh, not print, sorry. I'm gonna download a PDF document of a client's letterhead. And then I'm also gonna download an actual CSV file. Okay. Download CSV. Okay. All right. So sorry guys. Thanks for bearing with me. Right. The first thing I'm gonna show you is how to create a letter. Okay, a campaign letter on Stannp. Now, for each strategy that I teach, there's a specific letter format or template for that strategy, because that strategy is essentially trying to pinpoint where the motivation might be for the home seller to provide like provide the conditions where your client may be able to grab that opportunity below market value. Okay, that's the whole idea here. So, for example, sold subject to contract, the idea there is, or well, the motivation there is the pain of having to relist the property and wait months all over again, and incur additional expenses for having to relist the property, and that's painful for somebody who wants to sell as soon as possible. Okay, and the disappointment of having a sale fall through, of having a sale not actually completing, is a great motivation for wanting to sell quickly. When you want to sell quickly, you're happy to take on a discount just to get rid of the property. Okay, so that's what I'm going to show you today, in terms of preparing a campaign using the sole subject contract letter template. Okay, so if we click on this button here, it says create new template. We want to send an A4 letter, so we're going to click on A4 letter. We are going to use, if you've already got a template saved, then by all means click on your template. But what I'm going to do is use the blank canvas tool, use that template. And a minute ago, I downloaded a PDF, so we're going to use that by clicking on this one, upload. If you click on upload, you select the PDF of the letterhead that you want to use. Just click on these things, resize to fit. Okay, so it's very pixelated logo, but never mind. So we now have a blank letter. I'm gonna zoom out here for a bit. Okay, a blank letter that's ready for you to use for the sold subject contract strategy. And I think this is the letter that we've got here. I'm just going to copy and paste it onto this letter. If I click on text block, it's like a little bit cumbersome, but it's basically like using a Word document, or a Word program to write this letter. Okay. Here we go. All the best in your new home.
Okay.
Can you go, please, hon? I don't know what the company name is, but let's just easy properties. No, not today. Yeah, it's no housekeeping for today. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, telephone number. Okay, that's an example. Okay. You can align that justified. You can change the colors. Again, it's a bit cumbersome. You need to do like a few steps, but you know, nothing too difficult. Okay, if things aren't working out the way you would like with your house move, let's say we want to emphasize that because we want to focus on that pain. Okay, I am a cash buyer, so here we go. Let's say we do that. And we can have everything sewn up in the next fortnight. Again, if your client wants to reword this letter, and let's say your client doesn't want to say that he or she is a cash buyer, then you make the changes that your client wants to request or is requesting. You can also change, if that were needed, the line height. You can make it a bit tighter or a bit looser. Okay. If you wanted to add, let's say, a logo or like an affiliation stamp here, for example, then if you click on image, you can select any of these images. Let's see that. Okay. Okay. Or if your client wants to add their picture, let's say, I don't know, or let's say this. I don't even know what picture this is. Okay, sorry about that. But let's say, your client wants to add this picture. Oh, then your client can simply, or you can prepare it this way, right? And you can't quite select the order of the layering. Okay, let's say you're happy with this letter, so now you can save it as a new template. Okay, webinar sample letter, save as a new template. Okay, so now we've created that letter. Now we're going to say, okay, I need to then create the recipient group. You can create the recipient group before you prepare the mailing campaign, or you can upload the recipient group while you're preparing the mailing campaign. I'm going to show you both ways, okay? But let's say you want to create the recipient group first. Go on to mailing list, click on recipient group, and click on this button that says create a new group, and select import data. And click on this icon, and that is a CSV file. Now, because we use the correct CSV template, then the first and last name, they're all correctly allocated to the columns that Stannp uses. And then I've got here, postal code as well is correct. City, town, country, state. Okay, that's fine. I don't know why that's not in the city. Okay, let's leave it. I think it is correct anyway. And then click on import data. It's a small yellow button here at the lower right corner. And that's going to take a few seconds to upload. Okay. Right. So let's say that that's fully uploaded. We have the mail merge. We have the mailing list. We've got the letter template. All we have to do now is create the actual campaign. Okay. So to do that, we click on the send mail and selecting the bulk campaign, bulk campaigns, and let's wait this to load for a second. Using the yellow button, create a new campaign. We select A4 again. We'll call this, let's say, LS9, the month, the week, maybe the first week, or week commencing, or today's date. Is it the 5th? By the way, the British way of putting the date is the day first, the months, and the year. And let's say the strategy was SSTC in this instance, okay? So the area, the date, and the strategy. I use this format because it's easy to then refer back to all the campaigns that you've carried out, and you can easily check, what was sent when. So, and also which strategy did you utilize. Okay, so in this instance, on the 5th of August, we sent letters to LS9, and the strategy that we used was the sold subject to contract, which means that you can differentiate this campaign from, let's say, an LS10 campaign or an LS9 campaign, but using a different lead generation strategy. Maybe let's say the probate strategy, okay? But in this instance, let's say we are using the SSTC campaign. So when you're happy with how you're naming your campaign, you can just simply click on create campaign. And then we select the template that we just created, which was this one, webinar sample letter. And okay, now we just click on save. If you want to make some more changes, then you can make the changes here. But just a word of warning, the changes that you make on the campaign page will not reflect on the template. Does that make sense? So if I'm going to change this, for example, and let's say your client says, oh, wait, you forgot to put in our address, our email address. And you go, oh, right, okay, so I'm going to type in here, limited.co.uk. And then you click save and finish. If you then later check on the original template that you created, the changes that you made will not reflect. So just a word of warning, okay? So don't think that just because you created those changes in the campaign page that it will reflect in the template page. It won't, right? So now we're going to select the mailing list. We've got here the one that we uploaded a few minutes ago. How do I spell what? Lila. Like the name Lila. I suppose Lila. Yeah. Okay. So we can either select this mailing list, or we can upload from the campaign page. Okay. So if you want to know how to do that with the campaign page, then we click on upload new recipients, and it's the exact same steps. Okay. If I then there, so it will do this. and it's going to actually tell me you've already uploaded the same group. You can't do that. So I'm either going to have to rename this group or just cancel it. So it's warning me there's already a record with this name. Okay, so I'm going to close that. Re-upload. Now that it's done that, it's going to upload it again. As soon as the upload's finished, it's going to show me a select button, and that's the button I'm going to click on. And I simply click on the Save Selection button. Now it's prepared the campaign for me. Please review your campaign and approve. I'm using Chrome as a browser, so it doesn't automatically download the PDF. If you're using, I think, Mozilla Firefox, it will download it automatically for you. But in my case, it's not. So I'm going to have to click on the download button right here before I can present this to my client for approval. What you can see here is that the addresses that you uploaded using the CSV file has now been used to populate uh, the individual letters. So you've got here, that's 6 Moore Avenue. Oh, that one is 47 Wolverton Road. This one is 9 Ross Gardens. Um, so if, for example, the CSV file had individual names there as well, this will be, let's say this one will be Mr. Atkins, and that one will be Miss Robinson, and this one will be Dr. Patel, for example. Um, so the PDF proof will show you exactly how the letter is going to look like. You can download that PDF and you can email this to your client and say, does this letter look fine for you? For approval, save. Okay. So that is how you prepare a campaign on Stamp. Let's say your client comes back to you and says, that looks good. You can now approve the campaign. If you select this one, approve campaign, you will be able to move on to the next step. I'm just going to do that, which is to select the date for when the letters will be sent out. So let's say I'm going to select on Friday, tomorrow. It will then ask me to go through the checkout process. It will tell me how much the campaign is going to cost, and it will ask me for payment details. I'm not going to do that today, of course, but this is the step that's likely going to be undertaken by your client. Okay. I'm going to show you another, wait, let's go back to bulk campaigns. I just want to delete this, okay. To delete a campaign, just click on select campaigns, tick that box, delete, selected, has it deleted it? Right, so your campaign has been deleted, okay. To avoid access problems, your client you can create a Stamp account for your client. Your client just needs to go onto their email inbox and click on verify or authorize or confirm. But also you can create users, additional users. So you can type your own name here, your own email address, and give yourself permission to create campaigns on behalf of your client. But maybe, let's say, the billing, your client might not want to give you that access, but your client might also say yes. And then you just click on Save New User so that your login details will be different from your client's login details. Okay. This is important if your internet settings or your firewall settings is preventing you from accessing the Stamp using the same login details as your client, right? Okay, so that concludes the stamp recap. Mary Grace, does this help you at all? Do you have
Yes.
any?
Yeah. It really helps me a lot, especially when I will start using this stump, because I guess these really wanted me to use the stump when we do the daily the direct mail campaign. Yeah. But
It's
actually, I tried downloading the CSV,
mm-hmm.
the Stan CSV upload, and then um I've noticed that the full item is not per column.
So even the download, even when you
Mm-mm,
download the file, it's not actually downloading it properly. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Right, I'm gonna have to fix that. Okay, thanks for pointing that out to me. I'm going to um what I need to do is find a way to, I don't know why it's not uploading and downloading correctly. Because it didn't as well on my screen. I thought that was just me
Mm-mm.
opening a read-only file. But if you're saying that even the non-read-only file is not downloading properly, I'm gonna fix that issue. Okay, thanks for
Okay.
pointing
Okay. Thank you.
that out. Hana, do you have a question using Stamp? Have you used Stamp before? Or
No,
is
I
it the
haven't.
first that you'll be using it?
I have to run it by Elena because right now we deal directly with the agents. We really haven't discussed dealing with the vendors,
Mhm.
how to go about that. If she plans to.
So this is the pipeline tracking board that I created on Asana. Um, this is not an exact instruction per se. It's simply a suggestion of how you might like to design your own project management board using whichever platform you and your client are utilizing. You could do this on Asana, you can do this on Trello, you can pretty much even do this on Google Drive if you like to keep things simple by creating a spreadsheet. However, using project management tools in the Kanban style is very much user friendly in that you can create um, task cards for each campaign that you can move around the board wherever, at whatever stage it is in your pipeline building. Okay, so let's begin. This board is designed to read from left to right, starting with lead generation. So the first portion of this board, I would say, is the campaigning tasks from lead generation all the way to pausing of a campaign. And then the second part of the board starts from when a lead responds to a campaign, which starts with this column responded all the way to when that lead either accepts the offer or and then completes the deal, the client completes the deal, or that the lead rejects the offer, in which case we can maybe in the future move that lead card to a revisit column in case there is an opportunity there that that the vendor might be more motivated than when your client last spoke to the vendor. So let's begin with the first part of this pipeline tracking, which is the campaigning portion, which begins when we start generating leads for our client. Now, I've created a blue tag for the campaigning portion, and I've created a red pink tab for the inquiry portion of the board. Again, this is simply a suggestion. It's not to say that you have to do it this way, but you might get some ideas here that you'll find useful. No, I don't want to delete the task really. Okay. That you might find useful that you can either copy or maybe use to generate your own ideas on how you might like to track your uh, the campaigns that you're creating and managing for your client. Right. So lead generation. Uh, my suggestion is that you create one card per campaign, and each campaign, each card, you can use the following labeling strategy so that it makes it easy for you and your client to locate the campaign and identify um, the details of that campaign without having to open the card. So in this way, my naming strategy is to start with a month, so I know when the campaign was sent out, and then I follow that up with the strategy that I used, so that I know either maybe not to repeat the strategy for the same month in the same area, or it helps me identify which strategies have been used and which other strategies might I also like to utilize to campaign in the same area. The third part of my naming strategy is to identify which area the campaign was sent out to, or which area was the target of this campaign. This helps me create simultaneous campaigns in one area by using different strategies, or using the same strategies in the same area, but um, sending them out in a different month, or in a few month intervals, so I know that these leads refer to that month's campaign and these other inquiries refer to a different month campaign. So let's begin by creating a task card as an example. So I will call this, let's say, August. So subject to contract LS9. And let us say we're going to create a tandem campaign, but we are going to call this one pretty much almost the same, August SSTC, but the target area is LS10. Now, when you start generating the leads, you can park this card in this column until you have the files ready to upload for your client to review. Now, to upload the files, you can either, when you click on the card, you can either use the paper clip attachment icon at the top of the card, or when you write the comment, you say, "Hi, client, files uploaded, ready for review. See attached." You can use the paperclip by the comment section, okay? And your client will be notified if you use the @ sign to tag your client when you send the comment. You can delete or edit the comment. You can also, with whatever file that you're attaching, you can also delete that file if you made a mistake in attaching the wrong file. Okay. You can also add a due date, um, so that whoever you're assigning this to, let's say you're assigning it to your client, they can be notified when well, according to whichever schedule you're working to, when your client is meant to respond back to you, having reviewed the data scrape files that you've uploaded. Okay, so let's assume that the files have been uploaded, your client's been notified, the deadline has been set. You can then move this card over to the next step of the pipeline tracking process, which is the for approval column. Once your client, let's say, approves your files and says, say, "Hi, VA, good to go, yours client," your client can then untag or unassign himself or herself from the card and assigns it back to you. Your client can then create a due date for when you must complete the next step in the process. And in this case, I am identifying the next step as sending a campaign. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, if you and your client would like to add an additional step in between, let's say, for example, your client wants to add a step wherein either he or she or you yourself, the VA, will verify the addresses, then simply scroll to the right to create a new section and simply drag that section over to whichever step it needs to be inserted. Okay, so let's say the campaign is, sorry, that's the wrong order. Okay, so the campaign is being prepared. Your client says, yes, it's good to go. Then you simply move the card to the next step, which is the campaign's been sent. I have a few more columns here to identify that these are follow-up campaigns. Let's say your client, or let's say this campaign was sent on um, the 16th of August. Now, if that's completed, you want to move it here to the follow-up campaign column and call this the 16th of September so that you know on the 16th of September that you and your client will revisit this campaign to send out the first batch of follow-up campaigns. It's up to the client to decide the interval between follow-up campaigns and the original campaigns, because your client might think 4 weeks or a month is too soon or maybe too late. Maybe the client wants to send it every 3 weeks, maybe the client wants to send it every 6 weeks. So just change the due date accordingly. Um, let's say that both you and your client are okay with the 1 month interval schedule. So once September rolls around and you've sent the first follow up campaign, you can then move it to follow up number two and simply change the due date on this one for the 16th of October. It does fall on a weekend, so that simply means that when you prepare the campaign on Stamp, that you select the next working day. Right. How many follow-up campaigns do you need to prepare? Well, that depends entirely on your client and perhaps also the strategy that you are using. If, let's say, the strategy that you're utilizing, the lead generation strategy you're utilizing, is the unsold listings, so listings older than, let's say, 6 months, you might not want to follow up after the third campaign. You can simply park it under paused or cold campaigns. Or your client might say, you know what, let's do one more round. So it's always good to check with your client, after, let's say, 3 campaigns or 4 campaigns, whether your client still wants to spend money on sending out campaigns to the same addresses, to the same leads. Um, a different strategy, let's say probate strategy, or let's say portfolio landlord strategy, your client may be happy to keep sending out the campaigns every month, month in, month out, for, let's say, 10 months or even longer. Okay, if your client has the marketing budget for that, and they know, or they feel that they will see a return in the money being spent for marketing, then simply create some more. Either just use this last follow-up column for all the follow-up subsequent follow-up campaigns, or you might want to keep adding additional columns here for follow-up campaigns. Okay, for as long as you're keeping track of the deadlines of when the next campaigns needs to be sent out by, then you should have no trouble um, monitoring and tracking each campaign. Okay, so if there are more than one campaigns, then of course it just simply means that you'll be moving these cards up and whenever or wherever it falls under the pipeline tracking process. Okay, let's say eventually these campaigns end up in the pause campaign, then it simply parks there. You and your client might have a system of revisiting these cold campaigns so that you know when to delete them permanently or when to revive them for additional follow-up campaigns. Okay. The second part of this pipeline tracking board, we've got the inquiry tag. Now, by the way, I haven't shown you how to tag task cards or campaign cards. Okay, if you click on each task card, you can um, here it is, add tags. Okay, I've already created two tags here so that this is my identifier, that it's a blue tag, that is to say it's a campaign card, whereas red tags are inquiry cards, so there's an actual person who rang. Let's say um, in this instance I am going to call this, wait just 1 second. I also want to show you one more trick on Asana, is that you can leave this tag um, as a, you could say it's like a template, so that all you need to do is then either duplicate this task, and so you know that it's always going to be a red tag card, um, or you simply let's see, okay, here it is, duplicate task. Okay, or you convert it, or you convert the task to a template. If I convert it to a template, it's there. Okay, then I can simply um, create copies of it, and then I know that it's already the correct tag, which is the red tag or pink tag for for it to be identified as an inquiry rather than a campaign. All right, so how should we name these tags? My suggestion is to name it with the person calling. Let's say Mr. A Johnson, which campaign he's responding to. Let's say he's responding to the August SSTC LS10 campaign. Okay, just make sure you mark it as not complete, because when you create a template task, it somehow just automatically, excuse me, creates it, marks it as complete. Okay, so Mr. A Johnson, he's responding to a campaign that we sent out in the month of August. The strategy that we used was SSTC, and the target investment area was LS10, right? So this card can simply start off by tagging your client, okay, and then you basically inform your client that lead inquiry called, let's say, the 5th of August at 9, I don't know, 15 a.m. And then you just add the details here, such as, for example, property address, reason for call, asking price. You ask your client what are the questions that you need to be asking the caller, the questions that you need to be asking the caller, that you need to then include in the inquiry card that you then forward to your client. Okay, now if you're the one taking the calls, then you simply have that script. If your client is using an answering service such as All Day PA, for example, then All Day PA will notify you generally by email that a call has come through. Then it's up to your client, or maybe she'll assign this task to you. It's up to your client to um, instruct All Day PA what questions to ask. Okay. Then generally you might just want to copy and paste whatever was on the email into this task card. As an example, I might show you, let's see here, All Day PA message. Here we go. We've got two inquiries here. This could be, um, let's say this is an inquiry that as a VA, you picked up, and emails come in from all day PA to notify you that from one of your campaigns, a person is responding, a lead is responding to the campaign. And so this lead now becomes, so this inquiry now becomes a lead. And then you simply click on comment. So there's the details of the lead. You might want to tag your client to let them know that there is a lead that's come through. Obviously, don't just leave it to tagging once. Make sure you really, each lead, each inquiry is so important to not be missed, that you might want to notify your client in many ways. Send a message on WhatsApp, email your client. Um, if you're chatting with your client on another platform, let's say Slack or wherever, make sure that you use all available channels to notify your client that a lead has come through. Okay. Now, your client may then take over at this point and move the card to, let's say, call back or spoken with a vendor. Let's say the client spoken with a vendor, the vendor will say, oh, actually, I'm not interested or whatever. Then the client may move this card all the way to rejected or no sale, or maybe the revisit column. Or let's say the vendor says, yes, I'm happy for you to come to my property, view the house that I'm putting up for sale. So that can be then the next stage of the pipeline tracking. That your client moves this card over to viewing booked or scheduled, or maybe your client might assign this to you to call back the vendor to to arrange a booking. And especially if your client's using an appointment scheduling software or program or service, so that you can see when your client's available. You don't need to ring your client, when would you like to view this property, because the client's already told you using Calendly or any appointment platform. Your client's already pre what's the term, if your client has a default diary where these are the dates and the times where um, your client is always going to be available for booking, then that's what you use to schedule with the vendor when your client can book, etc. And after the viewing, let's say your client then moves this card over to the viewed column. From the viewed column, it's if your client is thinks that this might be a good deal, your client can then maybe do some due diligence or deal stacking on the property. Your client might separate these two tasks together or simply put it into one. And if an offer has been made, this card might move over to this column. If the vendors rejected the offer, it might be under this column. Maybe then you can add a follow-up date. Let's say follow up on the 15th of September. Revisit. Okay. In case what's not working for the vendor today might work for the vendor in a month's time or 2 months' time or maybe 6 months' time. Okay. Maybe, we follow up after Christmas, right? So let's say 5th of January. Maybe the situation might be different for the vendor in 6 months' time, right? Let's say the offer's been accepted and it moves over to the accepted column. And once the whole deal is completed, whether through a sale or some kind of purchase option, then it moves over to deal completed. This is how we can create a system wherein we can track the campaigns and the pipeline that we're building for our client. If I guess if you have any questions on how we are, how I've designed this project board in Asana, more than happy to take on some questions. If you're watching this video as a replay, um, please do send me an email, and I can help you offline by by a few email exchanges. I hope this has been helpful. I'll stop sharing my screen now.